Okay, so just really quickly before I add Michael, a couple things. First of all, I'm going to stay on after Michael has to go today because I wanted to answer a question about clicker training, positive reinforcement training. So I'll make that short afterwards. Second of all, I have put one of last week's live show as a podcast, so you can find that at Emma Daily Kline on all your podcast platforms, so you can listen to the kind of the official ones that I've done, like the one with Buck Brannaman, and then I'll start stripping these, so it'll be fun to be able to publish those as well. So I'm going to add Michael because he only has a half an hour. We're going to let him talk for half an hour. Let's see. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Is it cold? You're all dressed up.
It's chilly. I don't like being cold, so I dress warm.
Being cold either. Who's with you? Is that Katniss?
No, this is Libby.
Oh, let's see. Libby. Ah. Good morning, Nicole. Oh, cutie. Fun. Okay, so you're going to have to speak up just a little bit because the mic's not picking you up as well. So tell us what's going on. Where are you? Why are you there?
I'm at a Doug Jordan clinic, and yesterday I got to ride my mare Katniss and this mare Libby. I'm going to ride her again this morning. It's fun getting them to kind of key into the cow with letting the cow direct the show. It's a little different, but exciting and kind of fun to watch everything shape up as they really hook on to the flag. We're just doing flag work this clinic, but
okay.
Yeah, it's not the cattle. So, but yeah, it's been really neat to experience, which I've done some before. I mean, I do some cow working, but the way Doug presents it really puts the emphasis on don't tell the horse what to do, just make the cow the relief, and make the cow the piece, I guess is the way we'd describe it. And, let the horse think, let the horse figure it out rather than say, here's where I need you, this is where I want you. He's just really good at letting the principle of letting them find the answer rather than trying to tell them the answer in so many details that you're actually distracting them from the cow. So, and with Katniss, it was kind of a thing where she was so paying attention to me. She got onto it pretty darn quick and she loved it. But, initially it was any time I'd say something, move a leg, pick up a rein, her brain would come back to me, like, where are we going? What are we doing? But as soon as she saw that I was going to say very little and the relief was with that cow, the cow came out in her and she was, this is a hell of a lot of fun. And she's, she just kind of went at it. She was getting in a little close. So I was trying to, step her off a little bit and give the cow some space because she was wanting to crowd in there. So there's little interjections of, the cow is directing the show, directing the dance, but, you're still, there's still a conversation between you and the horse. It just starts with getting their mind hooked onto the cow rather than you telling them what to do relative to this cow. It doesn't start there.
So what's first of all, good morning, Whitney. Good morning, everybody. What is the conversation other than good job, way to go, horsey, excellent?
Well, you are kind of setting a rectangle, or Doug described it, he drew lines in the sand parallel to the cow, so you're trying to set this lane, and if the horse goes out of that lane, they run into a leg or a rein, they have run into the pressure of a rein, and so they learn to not crowd that cow or not just kind of out and leave down the arena away from the cow, because you've got a rein. Big focus, big emphasis is on keeping everything on the cow side. So if their attention is drawn to the pressure, say, when you're starting a colt, Buck will really emphasize you're say leading them through a 4/4 yield. They're just kind of taking them out to the right for, some of the first times. You don't want to come in there and just really get active with that outside leg and surprise them and scare them, get yourself in a little bit of a wreck. And you don't want to distract them from that rein, So that really comes into play here, where you do too much with your outside leg or even your outside rein. He was kind of encouraging us to step them off the cow with your inside leg, not so much a leg yield as a kind of a 4/4 yield, swing the front end away off the inside leg, while still keeping the mind on the cow. So it's kind of what would it be? Just a sweep of the front end, but with the flexion in the opposite direction of the movement. So you're stepping left, fading out, while still keeping the mind on the cow. And so you accomplish that by using your inside leg rather than your outside rein. The outside rein takes the nose off the cow. So, it's just interesting making sure all of your aids were coming from the inside of the outside of the arena, but the inside of the interaction between you and the cow, to keep that focus there. Particularly as your horse is trying to figure out where to keep their attention, like in the really early stages of it. So, but what do I know? Yeah, it's fun. The philosophy is not new at all. I mean, it fits, the way he's describing, pressure and release and letting the horse find a spot where their brain goes there. They're hunting the piece, except here the piece is with the cow. And rather than me saying, get here, get there, it's the cow saying, I'm running over here. And the horse is going, if I can just get up to that cow, that's where the piece is. If I can get that cow stopped. It really interesting. This I hadn't heard before. Doug was explaining, well, initially, you're not trying to stop that flag. You're not trying to, particularly in flag work, I'd have to ask him if this would be, when you're actually on cattle, but don't try to stop it, ride past it. Just let the flag stop, and then you stop. So your horse gets to stopping with that cow. Then you work up to, as your horse, you're moving along, then you ride past the cow and try to stop it. And then your flag person has to be a little more keen to where they stop. Whenever that moment where you ride, oops, sorry, I startled her. Snapped my fingers and she jumped. They have to be pretty keen to when you ride past that drive line, that cow is going to stop and turn back. But at first he's just stopping it when it's well out ahead of you, and you're not supposed to ride up parallel with it. You're going to stop right there. So the horse picks up, that cow stops, I stop. Taking the lead from the cow as opposed to you. So it's interesting. I'm just thinking though, you could almost, as they hook onto the cow, say they hook on really quick and they're needing very little help. I bet you could use their connection to the cow to kind of train them toward your leading rein. I mean, that's essentially, or you're bringing the life out, so really sitting down and tucking your tail. They're going to do it anyway because they got a lot of cow in them and they're just like jazzed. This is pretty exciting and fun, and I can chase this thing around, and there's a heck of a lot of peace to be found in the midst of this exciting deal.
That's a big one, right? Yeah.
So it's not dissimilar from starting a colt, you'll kind of feel them thinking one way, and you'll pick up the rein and say, yeah, let's go that way. So it's like you're kind of in this mix of whose idea is this anyway. Well, with the cutting and getting them hooked onto the cow, if you wanted to focus more on, utilizing that to get them tied into your feel, you could say, here, follow the cow, and I'm going to kind of put a little feel in there to help you connect that with what I'm doing. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here. If that was more your goal, then, the cutting is pretty specific, because you don't have a cow or you don't have a flag. You still have to be able to ride your horse. And the whole idea here is like, let the cow direct the horse, which is cool, because then you're not trying to fabricate something that the horse would be better at anyway without you interrupting him. So at least in the early stages, like I said, you have to kind of influence that a little bit once they get their mind really settled in there. So
yeah, that's it. It sounds, and I've played on flags briefly, just barely, but when you guys always talk about this, what is so fun, and I'm really not talking about you because it's the first time we've talked about this, but when you hear somebody talk about it, like, and that feeling, getting the human to feel feel that feeling of the horse going like, just that. It's like, it's kind of like the first time we maybe felt like that silence in the 100% the peace moment, to feel the horse go. I see people describe it and their eyes are like huge.
Well, and the other thing is to feel that true desire and enthusiasm come up in a horse. Say you watch horses kind of meet one another in the pasture, and one's really puffed up and, kind of moving as fancy as that horse can move, looking as big as he can. And, that's kind of what we're trying to create, is that enthusiasm under our direction, and then being able to bring that down to a real quiet place as well. It's starting to rain here.
Dang.
Not much. It's just dripping on me, but
the feeling, the
enthusiasm, where it's like, this is how I want it to feel when I bring life up, and say I'm, because he even described, if you're in a ranch situation, you don't want to just hook onto the cow and you're like, oh, we need to ride past this one, or I need to stop now and let that one go because I was just setting that one up to rope this one. Whatever the case may be, you can't just, have them hook onto the cow and there's the end of your day. So can they have that enthusiasm for the cow and learning what that feels like for the horse to really be kind of on all 4 feet, ready for the stop, ready for the turn, and seeing, can I create that same almost purity? Because the horses, their mind is fully committed. So their body is on the ready, right? Is their mind, can we work toward their mind being with us, fully committed to what we're asking? Maybe it's working a cow, or maybe it's something else, to where their body is fully on the ready and their mind is just kind of trying to take hold of that and find our position of peace as that moves around the arena or whatnot, same as you'd find it with the cow as it moves around the arena or up down the wall, whatever.
Right. And that's kind of like what we were talking about last week, putting a horse on a circle and then figuring out how to get around the circle, because that's the thing, is like, we will never be able to calculate, or we'll never know exactly how to make it happen for that individual horse, where if they understand the point, or the
Yeah.
purpose, a lot of people would say, or the job, then they can figure out how best to get on all 4 feet for them, for their body style, for, whatever it is. And that's such a revelation a lot of times, is like, okay, horse, you show me what it should feel like.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
And yeah, getting them in the game enough that they are trying to take responsibility for some of that, as opposed to just going through the motions because you got a flag and you got a rope, and you're there trying to tweak this, tweak that. They're going, what are we doing? Asking a question. They're having a conversation with us. If there was a horse on the farm that I could only have one of them, I would take this horse.
oh,
I told Kathleen that this horse is just friggin' awesome. She's a Hancock, and I have not
you
worked
could
with a lot of Hancocks, but you do not tell them what to do. You let them know this is what you'd like to do, and you ask them politely. You do not come in there and demand things of them. That she'll let you know that she's got more class and needs more respect than that. Anyway, so it's been fun working with her. But I digressed. And you need to watch the time for me because I have to go at.
Yeah, we're good. We have 12
Okay.
minutes, basically.
I just don't have any sight line on the clock here on my phone, so
I'll tell you.
I'm
watching.
take a class and disrespect Doug by not being there.
Nobody wants to be late to class. Yeah.
No.
Very bad.
So anyway, what you were saying there.
Yeah, and the thing, I think, again, just hearing people talk about it, and one of the best things ever is that moment when a horse changes from going away from pressure to towards something that towards peace ultimately, but towards an answer that they understand.
Yeah.
And especially in a constructive, manner. There's a few examples of that you wouldn't want. Obviously, a horse learning that if they can buck you off, they get peace, or we can run you over, they get peace. Like, we've seen some extreme examples of that are very, very bad. Yeah. But in those cases, it's not like you can enjoy it or appreciate it anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, like you're saying, if you're just moving them around, it's not even in the same category really as a horse going towards what they desire. And it's neat to hear. I mean, I know that you've experienced this. Just, you can do it just in an arena, so long as you set it up for the horse to like really know what the plan is, so that they can get to a feeling of peace. And then I've heard it described, Buck talks about this all the time, where a horse can get really proud of themselves, in that really proud, a horse can get really proud of themselves for accomplishing something.
Yeah. And I think even before,
Morning, Lynn.
Maybe it's the same thing, but even before proud, they're going, I'm part of the conversation. We've talked about this before. They're, like you said with Vivian, you see me? Like, we're having a conversation here. You're not just out here telling me what to do. That can kind of, maybe that's the beginning of the pride coming up in the horse, or the horse is going, wow, okay, like, we're doing this together.
That's my favorite, the surprise of life.
Yeah, particularly if there's been a fair bit of interaction where the horse has been kind of just told what to do, and there hasn't been that clarity of where the piece is, or the horse hasn't been allowed to think. I mean, Doug said yesterday numerous times, like, people don't realize the horse can make a decision, right? They just tell the horse, be here, be there. And I think, in the learning process, I know I've I've fallen into that myself. Like, I gotta do this for the horse. I gotta make them make sure they understand this is where they're supposed to be, rather than setting it up, letting them find it, and they go, oh, I can make the decision, because that's where the building their kind of pride and their confidence comes in. I can make the decision, and there is a spot for me to go. Otherwise, there's no decisions to be made. I'm just trying to get away from pressure, like you said, trying to get out of the way, trying to, I think of a horse like the Gamo. You could very easily just be like, you just tell me what to do, tell me what to do. So,
yeah. And some horses get so, reliant on that for confidence, you telling them what to do. Some horses just get so shut down, of like, almost like this desolate kind of a feeling, from the horse if they've always been told what to do. So yeah, bringing in a obvious thing for them, so neat.
Yeah.
And how long did it take Katniss to be like, because it's not like you haven't been thinking about her thinking or making decisions, so it probably didn't take her that long. Michael has a super cute little chestnut mare. Where is she from? The 4-6s?
No, she's from Pitchfork.
Pitchfork, that's right. And she's super cute. We named her Katniss, and she's like 8 or something now, and adorable. Yes. So
she has red hair. It was Hunger Games era.
It was Hunger Games time. Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, Emma came up with a name. I'm like, I'm terrible at naming horses. I mean, hell, I named a horse the Gamo. Like, what kind of name is that?
That's a good name.
Him now, but I don't know. I could have come up with something better. So I'm like, Emma, you got to help me with this one.
Took me about like a fraction of a second.
Like it.
So. Yeah. So how long did it take her to kind of?
Honestly, almost no time at all. Like, as soon as she realized that was the goal and I stopped saying anything, she was on it. And then when I started trying to adjust how she was doing it, like I said, she kind of really got in there and was crowding the flag. As I was starting to do that, I had to be careful how much I was doing, because it was drawing her mind back to me, and she kind of lost the connection with the cow, or wasn't on quite as much, because she was just like there, albeit too close to the cow. And then Doug started having me adjust things, and she was trying to get with that cow, but going, oh, but now I got to listen to you. So it took her almost no time at all, which she was the only horse, that went, that was in the clinic yesterday, that really, it didn't take anything for her to go, this is cool. Several of the others were afraid of the flag, and we had to build their confidence. Another one done quite a bit of flag work, cutting, some rein cow horse stuff. And that horse just kind of wanted to get away from the flag. There'd been a lot of pressure related to the flag, so he'd stop, do all the moves, but when he'd stop, he'd kind of be out here going, I wish I could head out that way, away from this whole situation, and then you'd have to kind of bring him back through. So there was kind of the emphasis there was definitely on, no, all I need is your mind. That's first and foremost. I'm not going to tell you where to be. I need, especially if you're not in the game, which is kind of interesting. I was helping a gal with trailer loading, and she's here at the clinic, and she rode in the clinic. That's why she needed help with the trailer loading. She just wanted it to be better. Anyway, she said, I can get him halfway in the trailer, and then, when I insist on a little bit more, then he trouble and he comes out. And she'd kind of gotten a spot where she was stuck. She was releasing for him stepping toward the trailer, but his mind was still leaving the trailer. I say, you gotta release first and foremost for his thought going in the trailer, because who the hell cares if his body's halfway in the trailer if his mind is still back out here wishing he was elsewhere. you're not going to get the last 2 feet. Or if you do, they're going to pop right back out where his mind is. So
or if they're in there and then they're scared and hurt themselves. That sucks.
Yeah. So it took almost nothing to get him to actually go in when she started focusing on just release when the mind thinks in there. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then he popped her in. But so it's kind of the same thing with this horse. Is like, they had his body going with the cow, but his mind was entirely elsewhere. So they were really manufacturing a lot of it. And it was kind of cool to see that horse go, oh, okay. And he's, yeah, I'll be right in there. Kind of cool to see. Sorry, got distracted.
That's okay. It's 3 minutes, so we have.
Yeah. I got to run then. It was cool to see him
change. I'm sure, right? His mind. Yeah. Okay.
Go, oh, this is all you need is for me to look at the darn thing, and you're not going to put a bunch of pressure on me. And okay, I got to run.
Okay. All right. See you next week. You guys, I'm going to stay on just for a second. Bye, Michael. Have fun. Have a good ride. See you later.
Bye.
Hopefully you can click off of here. Yeah, I think he can. Okay. Well, it's kind of fun at least to check in with him, and it's always neat to. I love summer, spring and summer, where we get to get out on the trail and learn some new stuff. Very cool. So thanks everybody for popping in. I just wanted to answer a quick question because it'll be quicker than typing it out. So I had a question. I think Flora and I were talking about clicker training just briefly, and what I commented that I don't clicker train my horses. I don't honestly remember exactly how I said it. And I have done that. And I wanted to clarify because there's a lot more nuance around those comments. So I have in the past really I dove into clicker training with Nigel and Lil. And Nigel, for those of you guys don't know, is my Lipizan, who's now like 26. And so born to do tricks for sure. And it was a really, really good experiment and super fun. But really and truly, the definition of clicker training, I think in the purest form, is just positive reinforcement training. And what that means is that you have 3 parts. You ask for something, you mark the behavior when the horse does it or does a piece of it, and then you reward them. So it's very important that you have a cue, a bridge, and a reward. I'm doing it backwards. A cue, a bridge, and a reward. And so in the best case scenario, in what I've observed, the masters all do this in every discipline. They have a cue, they let the horse know that the horse did it or is on the way to doing it, and then there's a reward. And that way the horse is always moving towards something positive instead of moving away. Even if we use moving away to some degree as a hint, you still basically have that structure. It was definitely fun to play around with kind of sitting there waiting for a horse to do something. You could just put them, I've done this, put my horse in the round pen, let's say, and sat on the fence and had treats. So I had something that my horse wanted, and then just kind of waiting for them to start offering behaviors. That's so interesting because they totally do it. I mean, gosh, you can just sit there, and especially if you have a mechanical clicker as a bridge, like basically as a way to say, yes, there, that's it. When I watch Buck Brannaman do it, there's a feel about him that is the notification to the horse that they're on the right track. But this mechanical clicker is really handy for the person. And of course the animal can hear it that fast, even faster than that. And so you can sit there and a horse will just start doing things, especially if you have stuff in there. They'll jump jumps, they'll jump multiple jumps, they'll back up to stuff. Like any behaviors that you have on the menu, they'll start trying them, and you can just start clicking. And so there's been exercises where people have learned to shape behavior. Let's say with chickens, there was a whole, I think this would be really fun to do. I haven't done this because chickens are moving around all the time. So once you teach them that the bridge, the click, means that they get a reward. And again, the definition of a reward is just anything that that animal wants, or a tree could even be heading towards the sunlight or the water or something like that. And that would be what that living thing wants, right? So chickens are doing things all the time. So once you teach them the bridge, you can shape all kinds of interesting behaviors. And it's really cool. I mean, and Karen Pryor is the one who wrote a book I highly recommend called Don't Shoot the Dog. And then she also wrote Reaching the Animal Mind. Both fascinating, absolutely fascinating to read. And it came from training dolphins, right? Obviously, like, you can't force a dolphin to do anything, and you also can't scare a dolphin really into doing much. So the positive reinforcement using the cue, the bridge, and the reward is how they get them to do all those things. And so it was really interesting to practice that. And one of the things, once I realized I didn't really want to do it with a mechanical clicker and a treat, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Once I realized that that wasn't ultimately the result that I wanted, it made me crazy to suffer through going back in how fast I could teach my horse things and how fast I could communicate, because I know how fast it can go. It is unreal how quickly a horse can figure stuff out once they're on the hunt and moving towards it's mind-blowing. And trying to be able to do that in the manner that I want to now, or essentially modeling, let's say, someone like Buck, who the whole concept is feel and peace and a connection to shape behaviors. But that's way harder to learn to do. And there's so much body control that, we have to figure out how to organize our energy and honestly, moving your body around, made me crazy. I was like, I am never going to catch up. I kind of did, or I just got used to the slowness of it. But here is why I moved away from that. We get down to our reward system. Basically, if you put a horse on a clicker, the beauty of it, and part of the reason, and I'm talking about a mechanical clicker, the reason that you can really convince horses to do just about anything, it is something that I would maybe go to if I had a horse in major pain, like, I don't know, out on the trail or something like that, and I didn't have access to any drugs. You can get them to do amazing things unconsciously, in spite of like maybe how they would feel, because it's passing, you're not accessing the conscious part of their brain, going right into the unconscious. That's the speed of the clicker, right? But the problem with that is that's a lot of dopamine. It's a lot of dopamine to be flooding into the animal's mind. And then if you get really handy in the intermittent rewards, the law of intermittent rewards, if you're a marketing person, you learn how to use that too with people. Very, very powerful with a human. And the promise of a reward is also super powerful, but it's all very, very interesting. The problem with dopamine for a horse is kind of multifold, but what I found is they get really addicted to it, and as we all do. And there's problems with that. For instance, if you decide you want to go on vacation and or just don't have time to play with your horse that much, and their brain is just wired to be looking for that dopamine hit, it's really hard on them. It's really hard on them emotionally. I've seen horses ulcer. I've seen, and you hear about this with animals in zoos or in situations where gosh, their quality of life and their life enrichment definitely goes up with these kinds of interactions. But if you take it away, it's pretty difficult. It's quite difficult for them to cope with. And then you also just get other behaviors. The horse ends up being pretty jacked up on dopamine, like that feeling that we get when we're on dopamine. And so again, on one hand, you can basically get a horse to do anything, and super intricate things, so long as you know how to thin slice it, and then build it into intricate things that take a long time before the reward gets there. But the dopamine's a problem. So when you are moving a horse towards peace and taking a little bit more time to communicate the bridge, so let's say I'm trotting along and I want my horse to stop. So the horse is doing a behavior, and then I have a feel in my body, which means, hey, sit your butt down, lift your front feet up, and stop. And that would be the cue, even though it's really just a feeling. I'm not pulling on the reins or doing whatever, but the horse can clearly tell that that's the cue. And then the reward is going to be this feeling of peace. So again, a little bit the difference between, so it's serotonin is bottom line. It's a completely different drug. And it goes through the conscious mind, and then you flooded with it with a completely different feeling, more like, and then you can see horses get really attached, and other animals too get really attached to the person. And I don't know that it's Pitocin, but I think that's one of them. I don't know if horses do, but like with people, that would be one of the differences. And so if I think of the difference between when I first fall in love with someone, let's say, or, you just ran, however, get your runner's high with music, or I don't know, some adrenaline hit, anything that provides you dopamine. We won't talk about social media and getting a like or getting a notification from someone that you really like, and you're basically, if you look really closely at a human, your eyes pop open, and you are getting a hit of drugs. Of course, if someone does cocaine or heroin or something like that, that's chemical to chemical. But the difference between that and coming out of a meditation, or, a long hug with a loved one, not on the same chemicals. And it's overall a different feeling. So for me, what I'm after is a horse that is powerful and has access to energy and is involved intellectually in the whole process. Like, I don't like the feeling of bypassing the intellectual process. And you could play with that to see, whether you feel like that's your experience as well. But I really like now to take the time for them to work it out. So, and then the end concept is harmony, right? So power and peace together. And so that's where I definitely use the same system, a signal or cue. Some people don't like the word cue, but some sort of a signal. And that even could be setting up the environment in a certain way, right? Because that could be the signal, time of day, like all of those things. Again, as a marketer, super fun and interesting to think about for my job as well. But using some sort of a signal, and then, this is really the most important component, I think, of teaching and training, is tell me when I'm on the right track. When did I get it? And the concept that the notification that the behavior is correct or on the way to being correct, it is very freeing, because then the delay between the notification and the actual reward, okay, I'm doing it backwards, and the actual reward is really neat to have. And so having the bridge in the middle is the secret, is the game changer. And then of course, the only thing you have to live with once you figure out that chain is you have to live with the fact that whatever you reward, you're going to get more of. So if you're not getting more of the behavior that you want, it's not being rewarded. Bottom line. And so that's a hard pill to swallow at times. You know, what I know that for myself, like, especially what happens to me is sometimes if doesn't happen to me as much, but I remember lots of times where I could not provide the peace for my horse, which meant if I wasn't going to have a treat, I could really cuss a lot right now, just thinking of the maddening part, knowing that if I could provide some sort of reward, I would get the desired result, right? But so we have to develop ourselves into something that our horse sees as an, some people would describe it as an icon of safety, or, our sphere of peace. So that is in a nutshell my feelings on clicker training. Honestly, I use it all the time, but not a mechanical clicker and not treats. I definitely feed treats, but in a very specific way so my horses understand. In fact, other side note, I think that feeding treats, if you understand how to do it, can be one of the quickest ways to stop a horse from mugging you or being bitey. You've got to figure out how to teach them how to get it, which is to go back and away, and then they get the treat, and then they never get it when they're on you. The other cool thing about clicker training is it teaches you to wait through behaviors that you don't want. Wait till the horse flips through some behaviors, and then choose the one you want. And there's so much of that is the secret to, I think, building things exactly the way my sphere of people really love. But again, eliminating the mechanical clicker was just ultimately my choice, because I did not end up, it's not a sustainable lifestyle for my horse. I just can't commit to that level of drugs, to them, even if I wanted to. Then the other problem is, you miss out on a feeling of a coming together that is, I think, different. So anyway, that's my story. I hope this helps for those of you that were asking. And does anybody else have any questions? We're over. Oh, good. We made it. Look, I talked the whole extra time. I just love that you guys are tuning in every week. Next week, let's see, it'll be 6:30 again, Pacific Standard Time in the morning. I think Michael will be back, and it should be pretty fun. So I hope you guys have a good week going forward. I'm going to sign off for now. Remember, you can check some of these out on the Emma Daily Kline Podcast. And for those of you that didn't hear the one that I did with Buck, that was pretty fun. I have one with Gary Bailey coming out as well. And that's my story. So thanks for tuning in. See you later. Bye. Okay, you guys, I wanted to do a quick postscript on the clicker training explanation, because I was on the treadmill realizing that I didn't finish my concept about treats, and I always want to be honest about the fact that I do give my horses treats, but it's not in that specific chain of behavior. When I'm not trying to shape a behavior with food as the reward. Not usually. Almost never, because then you do avoid the dopamine trap. But I give a cookie at the end of a session, or a little bit of grain in a feed pan or something like that at the very end of our working session. Mostly it's for me, but those kinds of rewards, anything that a horse really likes, is going to give them an overall feeling of positivity. And that's the secret, because if you are trying to teach behaviors with food, it's not going to work that way. Because yes, it is a positive thing, but it's not specific enough. On the other hand, if you're trying to avoid the dopamine and just give your horse a general feeling of positivity, then it works really well. So that is generally how I use it. One thing, and you know, we would say other things like scratches, horses really like it, but we don't tend to get caught up in using it for, you know, with mechanical clickers as much, because it's just really slow. But it still fits in to that same thing, I think, if you think about it. But just think of the difference between an overall feeling of positivity versus a specific reward for a specific behavior or a piece of a behavior. So imagine a dolphin in a pool. If you want them to go 100 feet away from you, jump through a hoop, and then come back to you, then of course you give a signal. You might point, and then once they're right in the middle of the loop, you might blow the whistle. They know to come back to you and get a fish. So it is married exactly to the behavior that you marked with the whistle, versus if you just show up in the mornings and you throw a bucket of fish into the pool, they're gonna definitely have a general feeling of positivity, one would think, but it's not specifically tied to a behavior. So side note, a lot of times I'll watch dressage tests, you know, on inspiring dressage tests on the treadmill, and I love Charlotte Dujardin. She's a team rider for the UK, and if any of you guys know her, please tell her I'm a huge fan, and I definitely want to ride with her someday. I love how her horses go. And if you watch her even in an international test, you know, she will touch her horses. I'm pretty sure this is what she's doing. She'd have to confirm. But, you know, if a horse does something very specifically and awesome, she'll touch them. Like, good job. That's exactly right. Which is something a little bit different than at the end of the test, you know, halt, salute, throw the reins down, pat your horse all over. Like, that's a general feeling of positivity and something at the end of a huge chain of behaviors. And of course, you know, then any of our horses, they get done with something like that and they go back, they get massages and cookies and food and all of those things. So I just think of the difference between a specific reward versus a general reward. And then the very last thing that I just wanted to mention, that's kind of personal, I think. It's one of those things that you only know for yourself and between your horse. But that thing that I'm ultimately hunting, that feeling of peace between my horse and I, if they really get a concept, and a lot of times I will talk to my horses when I'm teaching them something very specific, like, you know, I might say, yep, closer, yes, right there. And mostly they're listening to my body language or my feel, but, you know, sometimes it is helpful to use that a little bit as a marker. And in the moment that all of that peace floods between the two of you, that is the last moment that I want to distract them with a cookie. So I've made that error before, and it's like just dumping out all the good stuff that you worked your ass off for, because that flood of all the good chemicals that we were talking about, you just don't want to do anything I don't want to do anything to upset that. I just want to let that soak all the way through us. And so that is the reward, right? And I know that very clearly now, and I don't want to muddy the water with a less valuable reward, so to speak. And then I walked by my bookshelf, and these are going to be backwards, I realize, because the camera's pointed at me, but you can at least just, when you type in the search, you'll know what these look like. This is the original Karen Pryor, Don't Shoot the Dog. This is in 1984, and I think that's really interesting to read for sure. I give this book away to people. I think that I've given this many times away. This is the one that you probably will find on Amazon. It's her, or at least it's an updated version of that. And then, I don't know where you find this anymore, but you recognize the guy, right? This is Tom Dorrance, and this is, I don't know what the copyright is on this one. Do you guys know? But he was talking about it way back then. 1987. But towards, instead of away. That's the definition of positive reinforcement training. So Anyway, that's my postscript. For those of you that watch this too, I sure would love to hear your feedback.